Hi there. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. We're here to do that Battle of the Masterpiece Albums series we've been running now for, God, 3 months or so, at least that, maybe more. So we're in the semifinals. This will be semifinal number 2. Before we get started, please hit the like and subscribe. Also wanted to let you know this will be out a little bit late. Had some stuff early this morning to do that required my attention. It's all done, so starting a little bit late, but it'll still be out probably within the normal time frame between 12 and 1. Okay, so anyways, we're doing a battle of the masterpiece albums. For those of you who have not watched this series yet, I recommend you go back and do that, but I will give you a brief explanation. So we've done 15 first round battles in which I put all 61 of my masterpiece albums. I chose the winner from each of those battles, put it into the 4 semifinals. With the last episode, got 2 albums because I needed to balance it out and make sure there was 4 in there. So we've done one episode, one semifinal last week. Had a surprise. It was a surprise. Um, so we have one band that went through an album that went through that probably wouldn't have if I was just doing it on based on how I think about the albums instead of just actually listening to them. So I said, well, so that was kind of a surprise for some people. A lot of people think I should have picked the album that I originally had. I understand that, but for that particular week, I felt differently about it and decided to put the other album through. So we got 4 more albums today. And so normally how I break this down is I first introduce the albums, then I'll talk individually about each of the albums, and then I'll give you my ranking. So I've listened to all 4 of them this week. One of them's a double album, so we're going to start by just introducing the album. So you've got Kiss Alive, released in 1975, the first album I believe I owned. Next up is Rush's Permanent Waves, released in 1980. Probably my favorite Rush album, at least going into this. It was, for sure. Next up is Styx Equinox. This is probably my second favorite Styx album. This was released, I believe this was released in 75 as well, same year as Kiss Alive. Yep, I am right. And then the last album on the list is from Genesis, their Foxtrot album. This one, I believe, was released in 72. So it, in chronology, is the oldest of the albums here. Yes, it was 72. Pretty sure it was. Really difficult to read with it's on the Rapids. Why they printed on there, I'm not really sure. But anyways, I digress. So now I'm going to talk about each of the 4 albums. And we're going to do it in the reverse order I just gave it to you because the stack's already here. So we're going to start with Genesis Foxtrot. This is their 3rd studio album, fourth studio album, released in 1972. 2nd album with new members Phil Collins and Steve Hackett. This is a brilliant album. As good as I like Nursery Climb and Trespass, I still think this one is better than both of them. It's got some of the most classic of Genesis songs, including Watchers of the Sky and Supper's Ready, the 2 big bookend epics here. Epics in the sense that, well, the Watchers of the Sky is about 7 minutes, so it's not what I would call an epic, but it's still really good. And then you have a few songs in the middle, Can Utility and the Coastliners, which is one of my favorite Genesis songs. Timetable, which some people like and some people don't like. It seems to be a hit and miss with that particular track. Get 'em Out by Friday, which is kind of a quirky song. It's a little bit longer than most of the other tracks on the album, including Watchers of the Sky. And then you have a classical acoustic bit that precedes Supper's Ready, which is really good. It's really showing off some of Steve Hackett's abilities here. So this is a great album from top to bottom. I personally don't think there's a weak song on the album. Some I like more than others, but pretty much I like them all. Just a really strong album with an epic end with Supper's Ready and an absolutely epic opening with Watchers of the Sky. So Fantastic album. I do like the album. This is the first, I think, of 3 albums done by this artist for Genesis. Yeah, very good. Excellent. Bankhead, is it Bankhead or Whitehead? I think it's Whitehead. Next up on the list is Styx's Equinox, or Equinox if you prefer. I prefer Equinox, but some people like Equinox. So this has 9 tracks on it. It was released in 1975. The last album to feature original guitar player John Kruliski, or Kruliski. I have a hard time with that name, but I think most people do. Pretty much dominated vocally by Dennis DeYoung, with a couple tracks sung by, I think one track actually sung by Kruliski, and then one by James Young, because this is pre Tommy Shaw. Tommy Shaw then takes over on the next album as a replacement for John Kruliski. To me, there are no bad tracks on this album. I like them all. Strong album. And it's funny about this album because I've been listening to it off and on since since the early 1980s. My friend had it. I did listen to the few songs when we were over there. I would listen to the album. Some of this stuff, quite a bit of it actually was on either Greatest Hits or on the radio quite a bit, including the song Lorelei. Light Up and Sweet Madam Blue are also fairly regularly played, well, at least on FM radio in the daytime. But there's some really good deep cuts on here too, some really strong songs. So other than the hits that most people know from this album, Lorelei, Light Up, and Sweet Madam Blue, some of the other songs really strong. Lonely Child, one of my favorite tracks by Styx, absolutely killer. It's a very emotionally connecting song. Midnight Ride, the James Young vocal song, is a pretty heavy song, even for Styx. Pretty strong, heavy. Born for Adventure, probably my favorite deep cut song of any any Styx album. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Or still stuck in the past there. And then Prelude, which is just a brief part that leads into Madam Blue. I've always kind of thought of that as being part of the song Madam Blue. It's kind of an open, kind of emotional, solemn kind of piece that opens Sweet Madam Blue. So this is absolutely a killer album. I do like the cover quite a bit. I think it didn't do as well as some of the Styx albums that were to come, because they weren't as well known. They didn't get as much of a promotional thing here as they probably should have. The album wasn't really pushed. You had a change of, you had a guitarist leaving, so wasn't sure what was going to happen there. So I think some of those factors led into this album not doing as well commercially. But as far as I'm concerned, it's one of their top albums. Okay, the next one up is Rush's Permanent Waves. This was my introduction to the band, at least in the purchase department. It was the first one I bought, and kind of the first one I was really heavily invested in. So this is from 1980, right at the beginning of 1980. 6 tracks in total, produced again by Rush and Terry Brown. I do like the cover. It's different. Very different cover. So this has been, since its inception, as my favorite, as a Rush album, my first one has been my favorite Rush album for the past, God, probably 45 years now. It's never been really challenged. Some of the other albums have come close and moved up a little bit, and they back off a bit, and they kind of range themselves in different positions. But this one has always been at the top. It's actually, to me, the perfect Rush album. It has some of that, a lot of that heaviness that you got on Fly By Night and 2112. It also has a lot of that progressive element that you had on Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. And it has a little bit of that a little bit of that kind of techno pop stuff that was coming ahead of it. Not a lot here, but the noises are beginning here on this album for me. I don't notice it as much on the previous albums. This is where I first start to notice it. So it has a lot of elements. It's It's kind of like the next album, Moving Pictures. They both have that kind of movement towards a different sound, but still at the pinnacle of what that sound would, what Rush would have been at that time. So I love this album. Um, and it's 6 tracks. Spirit of Radio was probably my favorite track when it first came out, and then quickly followed with Entre Nous. The both of them initially were the two I liked the most. Entre Nous faded fairly quickly, has never really recovered from that time period. Was kind of taken over by Free Will and Natural Science, which then became probably my preeminent favorite songs on the album. Jacob's Ladder took a long time, but it's steadily gotten better. I like it quite a bit now, but I initially didn't. Different Strings I always liked, but I always considered a kind of extra or a deep cut. So I do like all the tracks. It's very well put together, production wise, sound wise, with some gifted songs here. So this was my favorite album from Rush going into this tournament. So I'm curious to see what will happen. Next is Kiss Alive. This is the double album. Um, this hasn't stood the test of time as well as some of these other ones, mostly because I don't really follow Kiss nearly as much as I once did. At one time, this would have easily been my favorite rock album. Easily, there wasn't anything even close to it. And over time, it's been in my top 10 list for decades now, like literally 50 years. It's been there. It hasn't stood as well up as in recent years, probably because I'm experimenting and listening to so much different stuff. It just doesn't get the attention that it once got. I do like it still. Of all the Kiss albums, it still has a lot of the songs I like. It still is heavy, probably the heaviest of their albums, and not over the top heavy like Kiss Alive 2, which at sometimes almost feels kind of screechy. This doesn't really have that element into it, but playing some of their best tracks on here. So it's a 2 disc set, same as it was a 2 album set. You got sides 1 and 2 on disc 1 and sides 2 and 3 on disc 2. The opening side, Do Strutter, Got to Choose, Hotter Than Hell, and Firehouse. That's probably my favorite opening side of any Kiss album, arguably. All the other 3 sides, Nothing to Lose, Come On and Love Me, Parasite, and She. There's always one track that I never really warmed up to on each of them. She was the one on that side. Watching You, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond. That is a near perfect side as well. I probably didn't warm up as much to 100,000 Years just because of the length of it, although I did enjoy that song. And then to me, the worst side of the album, and this will come as a surprise to people, features 3 songs that I really don't care for, nor do I listen to much, which is the last 3, Cold Gin, Rock and Roll All Night, and Let Me Go, Rock and Roll. Never been a big fan of the last track. Cold Gin, I've had my periods of time that I liked it, not as much anymore. Rock and Roll All Night, I've listened to way too much. I never want to hear it again. In fact, when I was doing this, I cut the last 2 tracks off because I just didn't feel like listening to them. I didn't want it to bring the album down. And then the opening track on side 4, Rock Bottom, one of my favorite Kiss songs. Still love it. Wished it was on one of the other sides, but it isn't. So, anyways, to me, that's how it goes. So, side 1, side 2, side 3. Oh, side 1, side 3, side 2, and side 4. A strong album, still has that looking menacing look to it. Absolutely superhero like in all of its qualities, and an album I've been listening to now for 50 years. Bought it at a used record store, which was connected to the same set of buildings that I lived in, that we lived in over at a laundromat, and it was maybe 3 or 4 doors down on the main floor. There was a record store there. That's where I purchased my first album, which was Kiss Alive. So now it's time to rank these guys, put them in the category they believe that I believe they go in for today. It was surprising in some ways, maybe not so surprising when I thought about it, but so we're going to go with number 4 first, which is going to be Kiss Alive. Now, there's no way at any time in my history that this album is finished at the bottom of any list that I've done, so this is a first for it. Second at the bottom is Foxtrot. I like this album. Just I've probably over the last 3 or 4 years probably listened to it the most of any Genesis album that I own, and maybe it's gotten a little bit tired, and that's what it feels like. It's a bit tired for me today, so that's why it's coming number three. Next up, and this will come as a big shock to people because they know that this is my favorite band and my favorite album by that band. But today it's going to come number two. Not by much, a little bit. Again, probably the same thing as Foxtrot. I've listened to it a lot over the last few years. Maybe it's just getting a bit tired. I did have a period maybe before they started doing this challenge where I went for about 6 months without listening to it. So it had an initial success in the first round because I hadn't listened to it for a while, but I felt that kind of burned out sense with it when we did this round. The next album, Equinox, wins this. So Styx is going to put Rush out of the picture. So two of my top 10 albums were knocked out of this tournament right here by this album that wasn't in the top 10, but has continued to grow over the last 4 years. When I actually I purchased a copy back in 21 just prior to the channel starting, and this album rocketed for me, and then it's just maintained a high level since that point in time. I didn't realize how much I liked it till today. I knew I liked it a lot. I just didn't realize how much I liked it till today. So it's going to go on to the finals. So Equinox in there for the finals. Absolutely surprise. Both the first two rounds, first two semifinals, I've had big surprises. I really, at the beginning, thought Triumph would get in there, and then it just didn't perform as well for me as the album that did get in there, and that's just somehow times the way it is. So I'm wondering with the final two semifinals if we might have a totally unexpected group of albums, and which would then justify the reason for me doing all this, because I wasn't sure if my nostalgic picks would stand the test of time against some of these newer albums. And apparently on this particular occasion it didn't happen, nor on last week's. So next week's is going to be the biggest challenge of all of them so far. We've got three of my originally five favorite albums in the next week's challenge, featuring Styx, Pieces of Eight, Yes is Close to the Edge, Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell, and then whatever the throw-in album is there. That oh yeah, Caress of Steel from Styx, from Rush, which has really actually had a renaissance over the last decade for me, and has maintained that. So it's going to be very interesting to see which of those four albums goes into the finals. If I was going by nostalgic reasons, I pretty much know how this would go, but it hasn't gone that way so far. So I'm hoping to learn something here. So, anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Battle of the Masterpiece Bands, Masterpiece Albums. Sorry, this will be episode number 2 of the semifinals, and we have 2 more to go. So I hope to see you all throughout the next 2 weeks for the final 2 episodes. For the semifinals, and then we'll do the final episode. So please hit the like and subscribe. If you want, you can leave your rankings of these 4 albums, or you may make some comments about anything I've said in the comment section below. And we will be back next week for Battle of the Masterpiece Albums, episode semifinal number 3. We will see you then. Take care. Have yourself a good day and a good evening. And goodbye from Prog Monster.